ourselves that we may work according to your own divine precept, instill in us a sense of purpose, make us servants of your will, and grant us a bond of selflessness that is truly be your work, not ours, and that no addict anywhere need die from the horrors of addiction.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right. I want to just remind you all of our fifth tradition, which states that we carry the message of recovery to the still suffering addict. And the reason that we choose those three readings is because it points directly to communities of addicts that we are not reaching. And that's what this is all about. We're going to talk about barriers that we might encounter, whether they're visible or invisible, and we'll look at ways to remove these barriers, and whatever they may be, no one will be turned away from Narcotics Anonymous meetings, events, and conventions. And not all barriers prevent us from participating, but they may cause us to feel uncomfortable. I see some people shaking their heads. You agree with me? And some of them make us feel, I know for me, apart from rather than part of. So today we're going to talk about some of those barriers and how we may be able to remove them. So I have a panel of two here, and I'm going to hand the session over to them, Oliver and Sandy, who are going to come up here and talk for about 5 minutes about barriers that they have encountered and how they were able to remove them. Then it's your turn. I'm going to open it up to you guys to come up and share with us about barriers you may have encountered and a solution possibly on how to remove it. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Oliver.
Hi, I'm Oliver. I'm an addict. Hi. Sorry, that was repetitive. I have Tourette's. First things first, I say things I don't mean to say. I do things with my face I don't mean to do. I make a lot of noises. I say a lot of things that can be a little disrespectful. I say a lot of things that can be a lot disrespectful. Ha, funny. I try and time them so that I actually don't time them. Sometimes I can control them a little tiny bit so that I don't say the wrong thing to the wrong person. I just turn to someone I know, and I say something super mean to them because I know that they won't beat me up. I came into NA 2 and a bit years ago. I consistently forget when it was because I have given myself many, many concussions because of my Tourette's. People think Tourette's is all really funny and really cool because, you get to say bad words and say, I have Tourette's, don't get mad at me. Tourette's is that sometimes, and it is kind of convenient because I can say bad words, but it usually isn't that. My Tourette's is considered life-threatening. I am very heavily sedated at all times because I have given myself 9 concussions. I broke my eye socket, broken most of my knuckles. Most of that happened at the same time. I scratched the cornea in my eye, all these kinds of crazy things. All of this is just to explain that basically I'm not faking. I don't know if you guys know this, but people don't give themselves concussions for fun. It hurts. So I came into NA and I was terrified because every time I tried to stop using, my Tourette's would get really, really bad. And lo and behold, I stopped using and my Tourette's got really, really bad. Every meeting I went to, almost, I would end up punching myself in the head and I would just leave. Because I was like, you know what, I'm being really distracting, really disrespectful, I should just go away. And people always kind of followed me out and were like, why are you leaving? Like, no one really cares. I care. I don't want to be annoying. And some people gave me really dirty looks. And, you grow up in a place like where I grew up, and dirty looks end up being mean words end up being getting beat up in the bathroom, and that's not fun. So I am from Niagara. The people in my area are used to me. They kind of know that if I'm at a meeting, Sometimes it gets a little loud, and they are used to me moving around a lot. I have fidget toys with me basically all the time because it keeps my hands occupied. They know that if I flip them the bird, it's not because I actually mean it, it's because I do that. And usually if I walk by them and I smack them on the head, I am really just playing duck, duck, goose. It's not a tick. Just kidding, it's a tick. I'm funny. I think every meeting should be duck, duck, goose. Okay. See, Tourette's is fun. Okay. No, I use comedy as a way to cope, because if you can't laugh at yourself, then it just sucks. So I still leave meetings a lot, because if you don't know me and I'm sitting next to you going for an hour while a speaker's trying to get their message across, you're going to think I'm just an asshole, which I don't know if I'm allowed to say bad words, but I can't really help it. So people, sorry. Sorry. So I just get up and I leave. I know it wasn't called the Old Timers panel. Predecessors panel that we were at, I got up before they finished the readings and I left because I got a couple dirty looks. I had a couple people looking back at me going like, what are you doing? So I got up and I left. I know nobody means to be pushing me out of a meeting, but that's how I feel, right? No one ever knows where someone is coming from, right? We all know, you treat the newcomer like they're the most important person at a meeting, because they are. But we really have no idea, even if you have 2 years, 10 years, 15 years, 30 days, 1 day clean, you have no idea where someone's coming from coming into a meeting. If someone's wearing a mask and you think that's ridiculous because something was a scam, whatever, maybe they just have a compromised immune system. Maybe they don't want to give you a hug because they might get sick and die, right? I come into a meeting, I say bad words, I might smack you on the back a little hard when I'm giving you a hug, not because I'm an asshole. I don't have Tourette's, I'm just an asshole. It's not because I mean to, it's because I can't help it. I got to a point where I would start most conversations by saying, just by the way, I have Tourette's. Just by the way, I have Tourette's. Just by the way, I have Tourette's. How would you feel if every time you started a conversation, you had to say, oh, just by the way, I have brown hair. Oh, just by the way, I have whatever, right? I don't like to have to justify my existence. And really, that's what it feels like. And this isn't saying, people are horrible, I don't like it here, because obviously I like it here. I'm at a convention. Conventions make my Tourette's way worse. When I'm at home, you can't really tell. But I love it. I love the environment. I love the people. I love the love, because that really is it. People love you so much. They say we'll love you until you love yourself, but they love you way past when you love yourself, right? They just love you. And even when you don't want them to. They're like, have a hug. It's like, no, have a hug, right? So they just love you. But, by the way, I'm not watching the time whatsoever, so I apologize. Yeah. So my approach to my Tourette's has changed drastically since I came in. I came in and I thought, I'm a burden. Everyone's going to think I'm a burden. Everyone hates me and I hate me, so I'll just go. Now, my approach to my Tourette's is more like, sure, it's annoying. It bugs me more than anyone else. I'll just go. Which isn't much better. Usually I stay. Yay. Usually I stay. Woo-hoo. The main reason that changed is because Narcotics Anonymous is incredible, and I have been able to go back to school, and I'm paying for that shit, so I'm not going to leave if I start ticking. So I'll be sitting in class and I'll start, saying some bad words, and I'll go, I guess I'm sitting in a lecture saying bad words to my prof, and they just go, whatever. Just don't say it too loud because it'll bother everybody else, and then I'll say, yelling, right? But because of that, I sit in meetings and, I hum and I tick and I clap, and people in my area have gotten so good at it that I have this really horrible habit of throwing things that are very expensive, like my phone or my glasses or my everything that's expensive. So I'll chuck my phone onto hard floors, but someone in my area discovered that if they yell at me and they say, "Put it in your pocket," I will say, "Fuck you," and put it in my pocket. Thank you, Daryl, right? Like, he's very helpful like that. And things like that are what I need, right? It can seem like a really big inconvenience. It can seem really annoying. Loud people in meetings isn't always what you want. You say, "Let's have a moment of silence." And I go, "Ha," right? Not super respectful, but it is what it is. It's not quiet in my head. It's not quiet out here. I explained it earlier in probably the best way I've ever explained it. It feels like there's bees in my head all the time, buzzing around, stinging my brain. That doesn't really work super well for let's have a moment of silence. But that is what it is. NA has been the most welcoming place I've ever been to. That being said, it's not perfect because we are all addicts and we are all human, and no human is perfect. But we all try and we all learn, and for that I'm very grateful, and it has gotten better and better every time I talk about it, which is why I do this panel every time I'm at Orkna. And I think this is probably the biggest crowd we've ever had, so thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you guys being willing to listen to my rant, and good job. Well done!
Yay! Good job. Thank you, Oliver. So the first time I met Oliver was at one of these workshops. And through education, that's how we learn. We learn about Tourette's and we're able to accept. And so the barrier, that's the solution to that barrier, because his Tourette's isn't going to go away. And we're not going to go away. So we learn about it and we accept it. So now I'm going to call upon Sandy to come up and share the barriers she encounters. Yay, Sandy!
Hi everyone, I'm Sandy. I'm an addict. Hi, Sandy. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Hey, let's see. What do I want to talk about with you? Well, one of the reasons why I'm here is, like many of us, I have encountered barriers to feeling a sense of fitting in and belonging and being able to be at a meeting. And it starts with, for me, it starts with a lifetime of being self-conscious, of feeling like I don't fit in anywhere, and wanting to just be one of. And so I come into the meetings and I am very hard of hearing. And I feel right away self-conscious about that. I don't catch your names are the worst for me. You'll introduce me, beautiful hug, and I don't really know what your name is because there's no context with the name. I can't kind of guess what you're saying. After about the third time of you repeating it, I will admit I just pretend I've heard you now, and it's much easier for me to admit that I have a poor memory, or it's my age, or some other self-depreciating kind of remark, than to admit that I still can't get what you're saying and you're standing right in front of me. I do wear hearing aids. This year, which I didn't have last year, this year I have both hearing aids. I couldn't afford new hearing aids. I'm 10 years clean now, and it took me this long to be able to afford 2 new hearing aids. But I came in with one hearing aid that didn't work very good. So I heard pretty much nothing. And I know there's many things that prevent me from being able to hear in a meeting. Often there's somebody sitting at the table, and it's a nervous habit I have too, about fiddling, squeezing a water bottle, squeezing. It is so loud if you wear hearing aids. I'll also not really be sure what we're talking about at the table. The reading's read, somebody pulls a topic, throws out a topic. So I wait, and hopefully I'm not the first one to share. I wait till around the room, and when it gets to me, it usually starts with something like, from what I'm hearing, I think we're talking about honesty. Is that the topic for today? Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm missing so much in the meeting. So I just keep trying. When I was going to school, when I was a kid, I was told by my parents, by the teachers, I just needed to pay more attention. So I try really hard to pay attention. I make eye contact. I eventually learned that if I sat at the front of the room, I could somehow pay more attention. What I didn't realize was I was teaching myself to lip read because I could see the teacher. So when you see me at the convention sitting up in the front row by myself, it's not because I'm antisocial. And in fact, I would love to be sitting in the back with my friends from my area, but then I won't hear anything. I was in the women's panel earlier. I couldn't really hear, and I was right in the front row. So it's not visible. And I know that I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one out there. I did start talking about it. That's the first change that happened for me. And I joined this committee. And what that did was empower me in a way that I didn't expect. I started feeling like it was okay to say, I can't hear in my home group. Is there something we could do to make it easier for me to hear? So we tried rearranging the tables. I actually had home group members that became aware and were making accommodations for me. But I still felt really self-conscious about that. I was like, when you're new and we mumble, we put our head down, those are all the things that maybe you're not even knew that make it harder for me to hear. But back to what I was going to say. There's lots of us that have hearing difficulties and may not wear hearing aids. So we're all impacted by this. I'm going to guess that there's a couple people in here that might have been used to standing next to the speaker when listening to music, like going to a club and being up. I know I did, but it didn't make a difference apparently. Or we are an aging program, and this is wonderful. People are getting clean and staying clean and getting to grow old. We get to grow old. So many of us didn't. But with that's going to come some of the age-related things, and I'm sorry, hearing's one of them. If you're not suffering from hearing loss, you may well have that coming down the pipe. The thing about being a part of this committee has helped me to not just advocate within my own area. Like first it started in my home group. And, we changed some things about how we set the room up. We changed some things about, trying to keep the crosstalk down, because when everybody's talking, I don't understand what's happening. Can't control anyone. We all know that. I can't control how loud everyone speaks, but I still feel that, and I don't know, I'm not there yet. I still have that feeling of being on the outside looking in. I noticed a lot in my home group someone would share, and when people get emotional when they share and their voice goes quiet, so someone would be crying, and I always felt so bad that I don't know what they're sharing. I don't understand, With that though, with the home group helping me, I then went on to, what about our area? What about our other meetings? My group was great with that. So we started bringing some of this awareness of our barriers and physical, mental barriers. Hearing, Oliver's in my area, and we brought it to area. We have our guidelines on our webpage, and we offer to help groups that think they might be experiencing, or how they can be more open to barriers for anyone that might be entering the room. And as a result of speaking up and advocating and feeling like I have a right to ask for some of these accommodations, I've done what my first sponsor used to say, is take my recovery show on the road, and I find myself doing it now everywhere. I went to an outside issue conference due to work, and I walked in and I walked up a big flight of stairs, and I went, where's the elevator? You've just prevented folks from attending this conference. And I mean, that wasn't my place there whatsoever. But it becomes a mindset of like, who are we keeping out? How could we be inviting others in? Standing up here and talking, I would never have done that before either. And every year I feel like I'm a little more comfortable doing it. And that translates into my job as well. Something that I hadn't done for 20 years. In my past work experience, one of the things that is always listed on a job posting is listening, good listening skills. So I just assumed if they found out I couldn't hear, they'd never want to hire me. And so, but in fact, I listen really well. I just listen with my eyes. I read body language like you wouldn't believe. I'm working now, and I use I'm up here who works with folks who are experiencing homelessness, mental health, and addiction. And I find that being able to talk about the things that get in my way and having that kind of empathy actually helps my job. It helps me in my job. And it's about advocacy. And I continue to advocate for what we need within here in the rooms to keep these rooms welcoming. And I also continue to advocate for myself and others like myself who are experiencing barriers that might keep them away from an event such as this. And I think that's about all I could say on that. Did I go way over? I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
So I'm back. Hi, I'm addict named Heather, but you already know that. So before I open the floor, I want to just say a couple of things. First of all, I have brought the first 2 volumes of our basic text in Braille. There are 5 volumes. So after this workshop, you can come up and you can look at them. I also brought some key tags with a QR code that you can take one of these, and if you scan the QR code, what it'll do is it'll take you to our accessibility page on the regional website. I just want to talk. Yeah. Good stuff. You know, when we started this workshop 5 years ago, and I would talk to people about, look around, how many addicts who are deaf do you see in our rooms? How many addicts who are blind? You know, how many addicts who can't get into a meeting because there's a little hump to get into the facility, and they can't get in because they have a wheelchair? And how many people? I have a friend who is in an electric wheelchair. She's got a service dog, and she went to a meeting, and it was on the main floor. It was no problem. But the washroom was not an accessible washroom. And can you hear me? Because I'm not talking. Yeah, okay. And so she said to everybody in the meeting, if I can't go pee, none of you can go pee. Okay? And that really made them think. Okay? So it's not something we think about. If it doesn't affect us, then we don't think about it. So, you know, when I was sharing earlier, I came across another invisible barrier, which is very personal for me, but many of you also may suffer from this barrier, and it was my ego. You know, when I first had to, you know, was unable to move properly and I needed a walker, I was embarrassed to come to a Narcotics Anonymous event where people knew me when I had a waist and when I was able to move, and so I didn't come. And what I had to do is I had to work through our steps with my sponsor and journaling on acceptance, accepting me for who I am and where I'm at in my life. And so now, as you can see, I don't have a problem. I just always imagine, oh, there's that old fat lady with a walker. But now that I'm Heather, and I'm okay with that. So with that, I'm going to open the floor. If you would like to come up. I don't want to hear you whine and complain about any kind of ailment. What I want to hear, and what we all want to hear, is any barriers you may encounter. I was talking to one of our committee members who's a vegan, and that can be a barrier. You're invited to dinner to somebody, or you go out for dinner. So some of the barriers we don't even think are barriers. So I'd like you to come up and talk about barriers you may have encountered, and maybe give us ideas of solutions. And that's how we learn, and that's how we address. So the floor is open. Well, come on up. Oh, okay. That young man. And then Astrid will grab you. Well, we won't grab you.
Hi, I'm CJ. I'm an addict.
Hey, CJ.
So this right here is extremely hard for me. I'm trying not to faint right now. I have depression, real bad depression, for starters, and social anxiety. This is extremely hard for me. And to top onto that, 2 years ago I had a concussion. A 35-foot ladder came down and hit me on the top of the head. And so when I do get anxious, the concussion mixes in and it gets really bad. They say the opposite of addiction is connection. And it's hard for me. I go to meetings and I feel bad for swearing, but he got to swear, so I'm fucking awkward, right? When I'm out by myself and if I'm talking to somebody in brief and I'm never gonna see them again, I'm awesome, right? I can make you laugh, I can make you smile, and then I move on because I know I'm never gonna see you again. And maybe that's why I'm up here now, because I'm never going to see you guys again. But I wanted to talk about it, so I'm talking about it. But when I go to meetings, even my home group, people, I have a hard time connecting with people. They, I'm awkward. I'm nervous. I get weird. And I make the situation uncomfortable, and a lot of times I walk away. What works for me is my faith. God hands me people. Today I was struggling, and there's a few people in this crowd right now actually who came to me, and God sent them to me. I know that. I was doing really bad, and they helped. And it's helped give me the courage to get up here and talk to you guys now, because I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only one. I think it takes just understanding. If someone's acting weird and shit, it's maybe they're just they're not really weird. Maybe they're just struggling a little bit, and I think the biggest thing that one person can do for another is just empathy and understanding that maybe they're just not as comfortable or whatever it is, right? So, but I find my people, right? I used to feel really bad because I didn't fit in, and now I find the people that I do fit in. And I know that that's where I belong. And if you can't accept me for the way I am, then I don't want to know you anyway. So, thank you.
Come on up, Astrid.
Good job. Well done.
Thank you. I wanted to give you a hug, so after I'm going to give you a hug.
He's coming. He's coming. He's coming.
I love you. Thank you.
Hugs.
You're perfect.
Hi, friends. I'm an addict. My name's Astrid.
Hey, Astrid.
And what's really amazed me with this convention, and I'm going to talk about solutions and gifts of recovery, despite I've had all of these issues before I came to NA, and then a lot of them have also come from aging in NA, and that alone is a gift of recovery. I never thought that would happen. But, what's happened this weekend is I've been, last few conventions, I've been struggling for whatever reason with social anxiety, and I have not felt it this weekend for whatever reason. And instead, I've been able to be totally present, and this is a solution, and really feel things. And up here, sitting here, I have felt really emotional, and I've been crying, and they are totally tears of joy. And my story that I'm going to share out of the many possible is a short one, because partly I talk too much. And but what happened last summer, and this is a physical thing, so I have a knee issue. One knee doesn't work too well, and that's okay. I can live with that. But suddenly last summer, the other side of me caused a problem too. And I was forced to use ramps. I could not use any stair. This would have been impossible. And I had avoided it. My online meetings, and my online meeting is my home group. And so that's, physically, that's okay. And whatever meetings I went to, I made sure they were at ground level. But then there was, in September last year, there was a medallion I really, really wanted to go to. A friend's medallion. She had 27 years or something. And I hadn't seen her for a long time. But I knew that group. It's the Bracebridge group. And I knew that, coming through the side door, I would have to go up 2 stairs and then flight 5 stairs to the first landing, another 5 stairs to the second landing, and then go down the hall, and then, 12, 15 stairs up to that level where the meeting was. And there was no way I could do that. I knew that. And I went to, I met the GSR of that meeting at a different location, and I was talking about that, and I said, but that's okay, because that person matters so much to me that I'm willing to come there when the person opens the meeting, and I know I can crawl up those stairs, and first of all, I couldn't have done that in my early recovery because I would have been so ashamed and embarrassed, and all about me, right? And but I was desperate. I really, really wanted to be at that medallion. But the person, the GSR, said, you know what? I'm not sure, but I think there's an elevator in that building. So maybe I can check that. So he went and he checked on the elevator, and he got back to me, and he said, you know what? The entire church, it's a church, the entire church is accessible. Nobody knew that. There was a ramp you could go up, you could open the doors, you could go down this big hallway. Just, if you were in a wheelchair, you could just roll right into an elevator. Then it would take you either upstairs or downstairs, and then you could roll right out the other side into the meeting, and the washrooms were accessible. Everything was accessible. I had been to this meeting hundreds of times, and I didn't know this until I myself needed to know this. And I went to the meeting that day that the medallion was on. It was so easy, and it was so great. And I checked our meeting list, both online and on paper,
And there was nothing about it being accessible. So I have, one of the gifts of recovery is service, and I've been involved in area service, and I came back to area. In our open panel, I talked about that. I said, you know what, how many of our 25 groups have accessible meetings like this one that don't know about it and don't communicate it to others? And so what's happened in our area is, well, first I became a temporary ad hoc coordinator for accessibility, and we did some things. We started communicating in more and more groups, and now on our meeting list, there's that accessibility, the wheelchair symbol. That's on every meeting that we know is accessible. And one was corrected. It turned out it wasn't, unless you carried someone. But anyway, so and okay, so I'm not that anymore. But I thought about this for a bit, and I thought, well, you know what? Public relations is related to that, because if I get involved in public relations, one of the things that we can look for is, are we communicating to our communities how accessible we are? Like, which meetings are accessible, and not just for wheelchairs, but maybe someone who's has issues with hearing or sight, or in some cases, what about if we're not computer literate? Sometimes it's not easy to find meetings if we don't know how or to use computers. So it's an ongoing thing, and I joined the accessibility committee because mainly to learn more. And so I've been sitting here crying, listening to these stories, and I am so grateful. And thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Look at how long your hair got.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm an addict. Okay, this is very nerve-wracking. So, talking about barriers for me, well, I also have anxiety, which makes it hard for me to speak up here, but I have sensory issues, so bright lights, loud noises, that kind of stuff is very difficult for me, and often in meetings, you have lots of people talking, even in here, sometimes I have to go away because there's so much noise going on. I'm going crazy in my head. So I've been known to show up to meetings with sunglasses on because it's too bright, or I have these ear loop things that I stick in my ears. So kind of the opposite of someone who has hearing loss. I can often find it too loud, but when people are cross talking, that also impacts me. So getting rid of the crosstalk would really help. And I also kind of stim a bit and am very fidgety, so it's hard for me I have a fidget toy that I play with, and during this meeting I'm embarrassed because I want to take notes, and I'm embarrassed to do it, but I've been doing it at this conference because taking notes actually focuses me so I can concentrate, because if not, my brain goes everywhere. So I just wanted to share that, because and perfumes and strong smells give me migraines, which makes it really hard for me to stay in a meeting if so smells is also a big one. So
Huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andy, and I'm an addict. I wanted to come up here. All my life I've had barriers of the person that was at the back of the room didn't get picked for certain things. That it was a fear for me. But what I really would like to talk about is.
Can you speak up a bit?
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah. It's the black mic.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So I have 4 years clean, and my clean date was actually my arrest date. And for the last 4 years, I've been on house arrest for the first 2, and the last 2 I've been walking around with a monitor, and the only places I'm allowed to go is to NA meetings. So at first I was very embarrassed to let anyone know that was the reason. Even at meetings, people would be like, oh, let's go for coffee, let's go for ice cream after the meeting. I'm like, I gotta go home, bye. That was just as bad as not being picked for the team, till the very end. And it wasn't till about 6-7 months into having the bracelet that, so I shared about it at meetings, my frustrations of having it, the way I have to do things when I have it. But so at a meeting after someone that I kind of looked up to in my area said that I should talk about it more, because if it helps one person in the room with what they're going through, whether they have a monitor or not, it shows that your past is your past, and what you do with today is what you get to do tomorrow. And I'm here, I still have my bracelet on, and at the beginning of the week, my parole officer said in the over 10 years that she worked here, this is the first time someone with a monitor has been able to go somewhere overnight. So it does, you can do some very hard things in NA. It doesn't seem, you just have a bracelet on your ankle, but it's a GPS. If I step over that line, I get a phone call, police show up. It's not good. So tomorrow I have 4 weeks left, and then I'm off. As happy as that sounds, it also scares the shit out of me, because then I'm free to do what I want when I want.
Keep coming back.
And that's what I'm going to do. Anyway, I'm not going to take up too much time. I just wanted to share that if it helps somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I just want to say something. Come on up. I just want to say something. We have a member of our work group who is deaf and blind. And he encounters all kinds of barriers because when he travels with 2 interpreters. One interpreter interprets in his hand, and one interprets on his body what's happening in the environment. And he was going to zoom in, but he couldn't find interpreters to help him, and that's a barrier. And I just wanted to mention that. Go ahead, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, friends. I'm Robin, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Robin.
I'm not going to take up a lot of time, but I'm at the point in my recovery now where I can't just think about myself. So if this will help anybody, this is why I'm here. So I present well, but I have fetal alcohol syndrome, and I've had it my whole life. And so presenting well is that, I don't appear that there's anything wrong. I've almost, so I push myself to do hard things, and that's what NA has done for me. Getting involved in service, doing the step work, taking on sponsees, But it's taken some hard work for me to get here to believe in myself that I could actually do those things. So the barriers are in early recovery, of course, that, I was trying to fake it till I make it, and that's what I've done my whole life. But being able to be honest and say that, I don't understand what you're talking about. Some of the literature has been difficult for me. And just, that being honest and just saying that I need it explained again and again, and that's why I keep coming back. The repetition has been good for me. But the connection with others, just being able to be honest and say that I have, a disability, because I've just avoided it my whole life, and that kept me sick for a very long time. So I know I'm not alone. I'm doing some empowerment speaking engagements, speaking about my living experience with fetal alcohol syndrome. It wasn't my fault that I got it, but it's on me to do something about it. And I just feel really grateful to have even said this bit about it. I had nothing planned to say, so that's all I have. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Good job. Well done. Marcus.
Hi again, Marcus. I'm an addict. So barriers. I had to deal with it at a very young age. With learning disabilities, with speech impediment, hearing disabilities, to reading, writing. It was a big obstacle for me to do, and I'm still facing those today. Even depression is my biggest factor right now. I'm suffering through very bad depression. I'm seeking help for my depression too. And over the years, being bullied and everything like that for the way I talked because I had a list, it really affected me a lot. And I guess how I overcome it over the years is just by just trying not to let it get underneath my skin. And even that didn't work some days. Then that's when my depression started coming in. And that's where it just made me just feel no pain almost. Where it was unbearable to just even accept it. I had 3 attempts of suicide over my years, just because of it. But I had one close friend I've known since kindergarten, for 21 years. She's been my rock, my solid for my whole life. So I thank her for that, and she's a suffering addict as well today. So fast forward years later, I ended up taking away all those people who made fun of me so I can be a better person for myself and to actually focus on my disabilities. And now it's gone a lot better. My reading's not the strongest suit right now, but my speech has been getting better. My depression is still there, but I have good friends right now. I'm at Monarch Recovery Home. Since going there, my courage to speak in front of people, even this amount of people right now, I'm still kind of nerve-rattling. But it gives me a good way to have some sense of clarity that there's no judgment in the rooms I go to, even my fellowship, the NA I go to, they taught me, whatever you say here is going to stay here. And it took me about almost a month to actually fully think of it, okay, this is true. And I think for those people who taught me the way of doing that. So now, I'm just working on my depression, and again, I have one good friend at the house, and he's been showing me how to overcome it, and everything, every battle ends up being a recovery in the end. You just gotta put your mind to it, and one day at a time, and you'll get there eventually. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more. Yeah. And then I'm going to wrap it up and tell you guys a couple of real important things.
My name's Kelly. I'm an addict. When I came into recovery and started my journey 5 years ago, in my city, there was, I won't say there was no women, but like there was only one that I can think of, and she ended up eventually moving away. I was in a recovery home, so I had to do the 90 and 90, so I did do a fair share of meetings in the other recovery group, but I knew that I wanted to make NA my home. And as much as I wanted to not go back to what is now my home group, because for quite some time I was the only woman there, and at that time, early on, I didn't have a whole lot of love for men. Had been hurt by a lot of men. I allowed myself to be hurt by a lot of men, and but somehow, I don't know, maybe it was a God moment, but I kind of told myself that what happens when the next woman comes, and if there's no women there, then they may do the same thing that I do and lose that chance at recovery. So I convinced myself to stay, and I'm grateful today, 5 years later, there's quite a few more women that come. And and I love seeing, because there's so many women here, which is amazing. So I don't know, people maybe from small towns, or mine's not even that small, but we're growing for sure. But like, you could be that person for the next person coming along, and be that strong woman for them. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for participating, and thank you to those of you who stayed. You know, a lot of people left. This is not a comfortable topic, but I hope that you will leave here with a little more mindfulness about what barriers are out there at your events, at your conventions, and please do take one of these key tags and go to our accessibility page on the regional website, where we have guidelines to walk you through how to make your meetings more accessible, your events more accessible, and your everything. It talks about guide dogs and about, you know, addicts who are blind, addicts who are hearing impaired, addicts who are deaf. The work group, when we got together 5 years ago, one of our goals was to see a meeting in every area in Ontario that would have an ASL interpreter, so that we could invite the deaf community into our rooms. This started back when my head cleared back in the 90s, and I looked around and I didn't see any deaf people in our meeting. When I used with deaf people. So I knew that there had to be some addicts out there who were deaf. Why aren't they coming to our meetings? So now, several years later, we finally, in the Toronto area, we have one meeting that has an ASL interpreter twice a month. And the region, I introduced a policy, an accessibility policy, which was accepted, and it's part of the regional policies and procedures, which is why you have ASL interpreters at your conventions, and why the hotels that are chosen are accessible. Anyway, with that, you know, we're available for questions if you want to come up and look at the Braille basic text, and please take one of the key tags. And that's it, folks. Oh, right, we got to close, don't we? Right. Okay. We don't have it.
Good job. Yes. Ducks. Whack, whack. Ducks. Whack, whack. Whack, whack. Ducks. Whack, whack. Ducks.
Take a little bit. Okay, now I got it.
Oliver. Yeah. I'm dropping stuff.
We don't know what
I need to get on the convention information table. Those are the last 6 months.
Dude, that's fucking sick. Honestly,
I'm using the service. That's all.
Yeah, but you go use some things.
I go early. You send me the text.
Okay.
I agree. And stay late.
Do you have the FD pamphlet?
I haven't
Okay, you have 6 months. You can speak at the newcomer
mentor.
Send an email to the newcomer email or grab my number right now.
Yeah, I got the pamphlet. I have it on my table.
Send an email to the newcomer email. We will get you in the rotation. And that can be something that keeps you clean because we need you. Newcomers need you. Every month, we need you to come and show up at this Zoom meeting and speak to newcomers about why you are staying clean. Okay?
I feel like I got more in common with them than the old timers because they all think they know new people are in and out and fresh. It's like,
but really, like, that's why we need people who don't have fucking 14 years clean because newcomers don't relate to them. That's why I like to facilitate because I can say, look, I don't have 45 years, I have 2.5 years, and I'm here because I give a shit. Right?
That's good, man. Have fun. Fuck yeah. Thanks, Oliver.
Good job. Well done.
Hey, Rachel.
Thank you. It sucks to have meetings.
Heavy.
Face to face.
Other people your problem is harder for them.
I just relocated from the top of Hamilton to Stony Creek, so it's just as easier to get to St. Catharines in Niagara as it is to drive through traffic in the downtown Hamilton.
Okay. It's an energy that you guys have in your area. There's been the first couple of meetings that I went, they were very active.
You all work very well together, but it certainly is an intense situation. You feel it very well. Yeah, see more of
All those people actually felt that way with me.
Still learning, you know. I know one time I showed up and I tried to get embarrassed.
Really? Absolutely start rocking. That's good. There's a lot of people who
Great job. I've been doing good. Like
one hand? When you go to campus?
8, 9 years ago.
Yes, please.
So well, I did for a while. I had a very bad relapse. It was short, like 3 or 4 months. It was good. And then back,
I had a job. Just last summer I celebrated 2 years. First time ever. And I relapsed in the fall and I lost my job because I didn't show up. And I was kind of glad, but like, I don't know, there's the first time I've ever had a job for 2 years. And I don't know, it's good. Where I'm at now, I'm only 6 months clean. I went on a short little relapse, but I had a lot of fire. Like, I wanted to do this, I had a really good sponsor. Coming here. I see the names all on Facebook. Meetings and coffee, I think it was just like, it's just coffee. It wasn't even like no step one, it's just kind of like coffee and Yeah, 3 years ago. It's a lot like Rockville, small town. Nobody, everyone's like, I don't know everybody when I moved there, and everybody knows the purpose. It's like to go home. It's really good to do this. Maybe in a couple of the guys celebrating next Friday 3 years. He was really came in, which was like 3 years ago. He went there, and now he's working like. So I really got. I kind of attached myself to home.
Clean that cut down. Bring your blood.
The baddest thing is like regrouping and actually doing this. I see a lot of people that don't, like in jail or they die on the fence.